I'll give it a second. I think we're good. All right. Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm the Philosopher, and welcome to the Console Explosion podcast. Today is going to be a spoiler podcast. First off, so we're talking about Logan. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to wait and watch that before you come back and watch that. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Of course, I have my guest, the historic nerd, aka Ian, and we're going to just we both seen the movie. It's somewhat still fresh in my brain, and I just wanted to really just share my thoughts on it. You know, a little bit of a spoiler cast. So yeah, before I share my thoughts, Ian, what were your just overall thoughts on the movie?
I really enjoyed it. As far as X-Men movies go, I would consider this probably the best one of that series. There's not much else I can say about it. Well, I guess in terms of like a lot of the other X-Men movies, I had an extreme dislike of, and this one I actually really enjoyed thoroughly, and there wasn't a whole lot I would say I disliked.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it too. That's definitely how I felt about it. I felt like it redeemed the other two Wolverine movies, which I liked. X-Men 1 and 2. One was kind of cheesy, but it did kind of pave the way for all the superhero movies, whether you like those or not. I think that helped to really kickstart that and Spider-Man, I believe. But I did not like X-Men 3 for multiple reasons. One, the Juggernaut was a huge reason, and they also stole from some very popular parody people and then shut them down afterwards. So that's a long story. Maybe I'll get into that, but yeah, My Way parodies or My Way Productions, whatever they were called originally, and they changed their name and got their stuff shut down. They steal their tagline and give them a British accent. Don't acknowledge the fact that Professor X is the half brother of Juggernaut whatsoever. It didn't make any sense. And then you plus cast a guy from the UK to play a dude who's from like the Bronx or something. Whatever.
I can't remember the specifics, but yeah. But then again, like the Juggernaut's character though was always kind of weird in the sense that he had mutant powers, but he activated them through like mysticism.
No. So he had like the jewel of I can't remember. It's a weird name. I'll look it up in just a second.
But yeah, the jewel was a mystic item. It wasn't necessarily a super powered thing, if I remember correctly. Anyway,
yes.
But yeah.
Right. It was either alien or like magic, but he himself has no mutant powers and no magical powers whatsoever without that. There's even an episode where he like loses the gem or whatever the hell it is, and someone else, like some nerd, gets it. And he's just a normal human being. But half the reason that he like is so bound to take out the X-Men is because of his half brother, who he felt betrayed him at a young age. And I mean, again, I'm comparing the movie to a comic, which I know it's alternate reality and they can have freedom to do whatever. But it just, for me personally, especially back then, I still hold that animosity, even though I'm not as critical on comic book movies as I used to be. That was the main reason I didn't like it.
But yeah, it's okay to say X3 sucked. I think everyone's in the same ballpark in that one.
Yeah. Plus, they had so many characters in there, like in the credits, but they didn't actually do anything except for the big fight. As for the Wolverine movies, though, those were pretty crappy, in my opinion.
Well, I thought
the first one, at least.
Wolverine Origins was just freaking awful. I thought the Wolverine was a step above. It wasn't as good, or no, it wasn't much better, but
it was better, but that's not saying too much, I feel. In the sense that, like, the first Wolverine, and I want to go back and watch it because there's parts of this movie that just doesn't make sense. Like, you can, even the CG being bad aside, like, that's not that important to me. I notice those things very easily, but just like, I want to say a continuity. Like, there was a part in the movie that just like broke it for me, where he goes to Riker's Island or Stryker's Island or whatever, and he sees that his ex-lover is there, and she's supposed to be dead at this point. And like, he went there for a specific reason, and he winds up just walking out. Like, I understand that your ex-lover is still alive, but like, one that's fairly out of character for Wolverine, even under those circumstances, because a lot of people argue that he was emotionally distraught and not thinking properly. But he went through to like tear some shit up or something, and he just is like, deuces, I'm out of here. Like I went all the way to this fucking island, and now I'm just gonna like leave. I can't remember the specifics of it. But,
then again, like X-Men Origins, like the motivations in that movie were really, really weak to begin with.
Yeah,
because the thing that genuinely bothered me about it was the fact that Wolverine's character was supposed to be this really troubled human being, but yet it was entirely self-induced in the sense that every war, his brother and him went in just guns a-blazing to kill people. And it was one of those things where I'm like, well, I don't feel sorry for you because you actively sought out these conflicts to go and fight in. So it was one of those things where the character was really fun cinematically to see that.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where it's like, well, this is a really poor choice as far as to try and show his character to the audience. Because it was one of those things where, yeah, his brother might have been manipulating him to go, but it was one of those things where, like, throughout his life, he'd seen a lot of horrible shit, and it seems like, I don't know, the character just didn't develop in the right way to me, but that's just the way I perceive the film, and that's why a lot of stuff in X-Men Origins or Wolverine Origins just really suffers because of that, because it's such a crappy movie. Because they were throwing so much stuff out to try and just... It was like, I think that came out right at the time when... When did that come out? Because it was right around the time when the Marvel movies started doing really well, and Fox felt like they had to step up their game a lot, and X-Men Wolverine's always been the favorite character of the franchise, so they kind of put everything in behind him and just said, like, logic be damned in a lot of these projects. And from what I understand about The Wolverine was that originally when they were shooting it, they had plans to make it an R-rated film. Then I guess the studio got really into meddling with it, and that cut down a lot of stuff and toned down a lot of things in the movie, which ultimately just completely unhinged whatever story arc or concept they were going for.
Yeah, and that's actually a big part of what I wanted to bring up with this movie is one, if you haven't seen the movie yet and for whatever reason you're watching this, there's a Deadpool trailer at the beginning, which is pretty awesome, so that's another reason to go see this. But two, in regards to Deadpool, I felt like that movie helped this movie get the R rating that it needed to have in order to be a great movie. Like, I'm not one for violence, but you can't have the Wolverine, my opinion, the true Wolverine, without an R rating. Because that's kind of who he is. When he's with the X-Men, not so much, but especially Old Man Logan, when he's not with the X-Men and he's just doing his own thing, or before the X-Men, like, that's when he was like Samurai X, fucking shit up, not giving a damn. And you can't have, you can kind of do it, you can maybe take out the blood, but you don't get that visceral, beastly feeling that the Wolverine has, that he conveys when he's being him, when he's like cutting people up and going crazy, and his berserker rage. Like, you can't embody his berserker rage in our R rating. And I'm not one for blood and gore. I'm really not. Like, it's not a big deal to me. But this movie, I felt like the action scenes and the emotional reaction that I personally got would not have been so strong. Like, one of the best scenes to me was when he took that serum and like went ape shit bananas, and he did like, he just tore people up and he just starts yelling. Like, it's cheesy, but I got goosebumps during that part, because they're just like, yes, that's the fucking Wolverine. That is the Wolverine, and he is just like, there's more that I'm gonna get to behind that, but just like the emotion that I felt from the buildup of the movie and the action and the way he's just like, this dude's on his last leg and he's just going crazy, tearing people up. And the choreography was great. The CGI was good. Like, his claws didn't look, maybe they weren't CGI. I assume they were, but it just, like, that R rating helped that movie. Like, that was one of the puzzle pieces. Like, I think it could have still been a good movie, but it wouldn't have been a Wolverine movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, I mean, a lot of the stuff that they did in this movie, aside from the language and the one boob shot you saw in it, I mean, they did like X2, which was probably one of the better X-Men movies initially. Well, yeah, because there were only two so far, but yeah. But that had a lot of him killing people. There was just no blood. So they had a lot of that kind of rage going on, and it conveyed that well. But I think what worked so well for the Wolverine was the fact that the director was actually allowed to do what he wanted to do, and the studio didn't interfere too much with his vision. And by giving it an R rating, and I think Hugh Jackman actually being willing to take a pay cut to get that made, because studios are all about that bottom line of how much money they're going to make, and R-rated movies ultimately tend to limit the ceiling and how much money you can make because little kids can't go to it. So for them, it's a financial risk, but the fact that they were allowed to artistically pursue the course they wanted and get the R rating, and then that R rating allowed them to expand and explore the potential of what they could do with the character. And I think that ultimately, yeah, you're kind of right, that did really help the film. But I think ultimately, in my opinion, was just the director had a vision for how he wanted the story to go and progress, and he was allowed to actually pursue that. And I think ultimately Logan kind of shows that.
Yeah, and while you were talking, I did a quick search just to see what the box office sales are looking like for this movie.
I think it's doing insanely well.
Yeah, it's doing. This post was from 4 days ago, so it was at 85 million as of 4 days ago. It's 2 days ago. It says it's scheduled to hit 100 million at the domestic box office. So this is the domestic box office, not worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie, despite its R rating, is making some great money. That I feel like I can't remember his name for the life of me. But have you heard of the whole story about the 4 Minute Mile?
No.
Okay, so there was an athlete. I can't remember his name. I'll make it relevant in a second.
The best I can do is a 7 flat.
I can only do like 10 minutes. So I'll feel bad. But I can't remember his name. Roger Bannister. That's it. Roger Bannister was the first person to ever break the 4 Minute Mile. Before then, people thought it was impossible. Like doctors are saying it's physically impossible for a human being to do that thing. And after he broke that 4 Minute Mile, like within the next 3 months, like 9 more people broke that mile. I'm getting my numbers wrong, but within a short amount of time, a significant number of people wound up breaking that 4 Minute Mile. Like, why is that? It wasn't all of a sudden, some magical thing like, oh yeah, no longer humans are, you guys are allowed now to break the 4 Minute Mile. It just, that mental barrier was broken. That like, that's the stereotype. That's the limit of human capabilities. I feel like Deadpool was kind of like that for comic book movies. It was like, you don't need to have a PG-13 rating to make a good ass movie and to still make good numbers despite you cutting off a potential viewer base. So yeah, I like that. Another thing that I want to bring up when you were talking about characters are the characters. The interaction of all the characters, in my opinion, was great. Like Wolverine was Wolverine, but he's kind of a dick. I feel like, throughout most of the movie, he's kind of a dick, but that because of his, more than halfway through the movie, like, the first quarter of the movie, you see that there's reasons for why he is the way he is, and just his interactions with all the other characters, his interactions with X-23 and Xavier and Caliban, it kind of just helped build this emotional feeling, which was the other topic I wanted to get to, and I'll see if you have any thoughts on this in a second too, but I'll just share this thought while I'm talking about it. And it's since that, like, for me personally, my experience while watching this movie is like, I was thinking, man, Logan's an asshole. This is nothing new. But when it comes to Xavier, you see the level of loyalty that he has with this person. He's kind of a dick to Caliban a little bit, but it's it's because he cares about Professor X, and he's kind of an ass. You see how in the beginning of the movie, like at the beginning of his interaction with X-23, I can't remember her name, but the little girl, he's kind of Laura. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was original name or something different, but yeah, you don't really see him giving a damn about her for most of the movie. She's fantastic too. Oh man, I could talk about her, but throughout the movie, you just see this gradual change. You see what is the term? Round character. You see development within Wolverine, within Logan. Within these relationships and the characters, and by the end, that loyalty that he felt towards Xavier is somewhat transferred to Laura, to X-23, and he goes out of his way to just make sure that he kind of fulfills this last dying wish to his former mentor, I suppose, his former leader in some sense. And like I want to say this, I don't cry during movies. I don't tend to get teary-eyed. I'm not saying it because I'm macho. It's just something that I don't feel that connected to characters in movies. It just is something that doesn't happen for me very, very often. And I got teary-eyed during this movie, and I was actually kind of happy I got teary-eyed because I don't usually feel that. But when Logan was dying, and like I had to acknowledge that, for whatever reason, I felt emotions during this movie. I had the feels during this movie, and that is so rare for me, and that was very refreshing to feel that. And that feeling lingered on until the very end of the movie when the credits went on. And I kind of want to have a mini rant about the first song they played during the credits, because that didn't give me time to really sit in that emotion. I wish they would have played something a little sadder so I could sit in that emotion, not some random like country music or whatever it was. But back to my point, yeah, it felt very.
Well, wait, wasn't it? I thought it was Johnny Cash was the last song they played.
It could be. I'm not familiar with Johnny Cash.
Well, okay, the song.
It got a little sadder, but the way it began, the way the song began was like, what the fuck? But when it started getting into the actual chorus and everything, it kind of sunk back in. So I mean, at that point, I was already like out of my emotional state. But it may have been Johnny Cash. I don't follow the guy.
Well, no, he's kind of dead now. But ultimately, what was really intriguing about the song was the Johnny Cash song was called "Hurt," which is actually a cover of a Trent Reznor song from Nine Inch Nails.
Really? Wait. So Johnny Cash covered Nine Inch Nails?
Yeah.
Or other way around?
Johnny Cash covered Nine Inch Nails. And then Trent Reznor was like, it's not my song anymore. It's his, because his version is fucking amazing. But yeah, so that's kind of, I think if you'd known the song and the history of the song, and also if you listen to the words of it, it's a damn good, powerful song. And I would define it as, I don't like country, and I wouldn't say Johnny Cash is country. But that's just me.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I wouldn't say I hate country. It's just very minimal songs, but that's somewhat irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I want to know what if anything you felt when you're watching this movie, when I was talking about and whatnot.
Oh, the emotional connection. For me, it's one of those things where I don't get too emotionally involved in films. What kind of saddened me a little bit was I felt like this was Hugh Jackman finally owning the character in this amazing way. That unfortunately, this is the last Hugh Jackman ride as Wolverine, and that kind of was the thing that disappointed me the most. And so that kind of made me a little bit sad in the sense I'm like, we'll never get to see him be that amazing again, because he owned the fuck out of that character, and it was just an astounding portrayal of it. Yeah,
I agree 100%. I think that was a little bit of that feeling. Was like, man, like there's not gonna. I didn't know that for sure there wasn't going to be another Wolverine movie, but I was like, where could they go from here? So in my mind, Wolverine was dead, and I was like,
But sorry. Oh, but rolling back to what you were saying about the country music, ironically, if you look at the way this film's put together and the feeling and the vibe it has, it's the movie's a Western. That's kind of the idea, the premise they were going for, was the sense that it had that lone warrior kind of moment where it had moments of action, like really good action, but a lot of the film was people sitting and talking and just discussing the emotional events that took place before the film. And a lot of country or Western films will kind of take that approach to how they present the story. And oftentimes a lot of Western films will have that rather tragic ending that isn't necessarily ideal for everybody. Like, for example, in the movie they were watching that Western film Shane, which has that iconic ending where like Shane's like, I gotta move on, and the little boy who was attached to Shane is screaming Shane as Shane is riding away. And so it has so it has that kind of sad thematic ending that a lot of Western films would have at the time. So it kind of had that approach to it, which I thought it did really, really well.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. Now, there's a YouTuber called the Nerd Writer, and I think you mentioned him to me before too. I hope he does a Logan film, because I feel like he would do something like the parallels between like that movie and Logan. So just a side thought that I hope if he does that.
Yeah, because considering that, like, God, what was the one thing in here?
What's that?
I'm trying to think of what Western films it took a lot of beats from, but ultimately the film, like I was gonna say thematically, and also the colors they used, because it had a lot of sweeping shots of landscapes, things like that kind of were
very Dust Bowl-y
in that method. But then again, like X-Men historically has kind of had some good sweeping landscape shots. So I think almost every X-Men movie has always had some panning of a forest somewhere for whatever reason. But
yeah.
So it's kind of worked out for that. But Logan, I think, is a great film that kind of transcends where the X-Men films are, because it felt to me like X-Men New Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse are. I'm not a big fan of them. Like I don't even waste my time to go see them in the theaters just because I don't really care for that direction they went, because they're jumping the gun too quickly in the bad guys they're going after. So it's like they went after Apocalypse, which was probably one of the single most threatening mutants ever that I recall, at least from the cartoon in the 90s. And they kind of just went straight.
There was no build-up.
Yeah, there was absolutely no build-up. So they just went straight to it, and that's over. And you're kind of like, okay.
Like, look at Thanos. They've been building on that character upon like 4 or 5 different films, between the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy and the individual movies and just referencing to it. And then it just seems like the X-Men movies just kind of like blow their loads. Like, oh, hey, here's Apocalypse. No build up, no hints to it between the other movies. I haven't even seen that movie, and I don't really have much of a desire to see it. Or maybe I haven't. I just don't remember it. I don't know.
I would believe you forgot watching it based on my feelings about it.
I saw one of them where they go back in time and do some stuff.
That was Days of Future Past. I mean, that one was pretty good. The problem you get into now as well is that the X-Men films, the timelines are so convoluted as to where we are now that it's almost like, so Logan as the character, what timeline does he exist in? Because what kind of really bugged me was at the end of X3 when Charles Xavier died, or no, in the middle of it, and then the after credits, he puts his consciousness into the brain of a vegetable guy. So it's one of those things where, like, so okay, why can't Xavier do that again and take over another body while transferring his consciousness? So it's really one of those things where, like, the X-Men universe, it doesn't obey its own rules, because they've established these in prior films, and I guess they just expect people to have forgotten about them because they're over 10 years old at this point. And so it's like the logic of the X-Men universe isn't very well defined or fleshed out, where in the Marvel universe, they have directions they go, but they know it's a comic book movie, but they try to keep everything within an explanation. So it's not like too overpowered or doesn't make too much, what's what I'm looking for. It makes sense within the context of the films, but where the X-Men films now, they branched out to the point that they can literally go any direction and not really explain it that well, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, it makes great sense, because the way they started with X-Men 1 through 3, you had that, and then you had this branch off of Wolverine, which didn't necessarily seem like it was the same story arc as the Wolverine movie.
Yeah, because Wolverine Origins was a prequel, which was kind of convoluted and didn't really tie anything together. And it
also changed Sabretooth. The relationship between Wolverine and Sabretooth is completely different.
Yeah, because you get the X-Men 1 movie, and then like they don't even recognize each other, and you're like, well, that's kind of a dumb plot hole they could have gone into, and the actors aren't even the same.
Yeah, Les Schreiber or whatever his name was the X-Men Origins guy, and I don't know who the heck the other one was.
I thought it was some wrestler. I thought.
I think I want to say the same thing, but I'm not sure.
In X-Men, yeah, I can't remember who exactly played it. But I'm sure IMDb could answer the question for us. But yeah, it was one of those things where it was so convoluted, and like just the directions they went with those, it was like, oh man, I don't even know what the X-Men are doing. But to me, I would definitely say Logan is the best of the X-Men films. I wouldn't say it's like the greatest superhero film, like some people are probably saying. I would say it's up there. It ranks pretty high on the scale of it's a very well done, and overall the movie works, which a lot of movies don't work. But this one comes together quite well. And to me, I'll go into this one. Like I've absolutely loved the character of X-23 since she was.
Thank you. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'll transition to that for you. So I've been following the character of X-23 since she was introduced on the cartoon series X-Men Evolution. And that was where she first came into existence. And then she was so popular in that show that the Marvel writers actually introduced her into the comic book series as well. So she became an official part of that universe outside of the cartoon. And then she was in, I think it was like X-Men New Class, which she had a comic run on that one, and it was just phenomenal. And but even then, like the way they did it in the X-Men Evolution animated series was really good. But in that one, she was created by Hydra, so it was a little bit of a shift there. But in this one, I like how they did the approach. I understood that there's no way that Fox can get the rights to do Hydra and stuff in the X-Men universe. So the way they did it, I thought was rather creative, and I thought it was skillfully written in to the point that it wasn't like insulting to anyone who followed the lore. And I'm like, okay, cool. I liked how they did the like if you looked at the chart, they had her as X-23, number 23, so it followed that lore well as her being the 23rd design. But I thought it was intriguing in the sense that in X-Men Evolution, she was just the 23rd design of the Wolverine clone. So all their work was meant to just clone Wolverine. There was no intention of making any other X-Men superpowers. It was just they wanted just a clone of Wolverine, and they discovered that they couldn't do it through they couldn't do it with the male genetics, so they had to do it with the exact chromosome, so X-23.
I felt like the fact that they tied it together with the son of was it Stryker? The guy that ran the Weapon X project.
It might have been. I'm not sure what they did there, because I thought that I was under the impression in X2 that the son of Stryker was a dude that expelled a neurotoxin that would manipulate people's minds, and I thought he was Stryker's son. So I don't know where this new character. So I don't know where this new character came from. So that's where I'm confused.
Right. It may be one of the people who did it, like one of the scientists, because this person seems to be a scientist, and he referred to his dad as some sort of scientist. So I want to go back and do some research because I can't find it right now. Weapon X operated through Canada's Department K and was directed by Professor Andre Thornton. At the side where Dr. Abraham Cornelius, Dr. Carol Hines, and Dr. Dale Rice, and a bunch of other scientists.
But yeah, then again, but if you're following the comic book lore, there's a lot of different stuff there, because like if you're just following the X-Men films, Stryker was in it. So I guess it would be safe to assume that because of Days of Future Past, this will make perfect sense to me. Okay, now, so let's think about it this way. Because of Days of Future Past, you have an incident where Stryker is exposed to Wolverine a lot earlier, and so Stryker gets his adamantium stuff earlier from Stryker, which, let's just say, potentially Stryker learned something more about the mutant genes before his son makes his wife, put a electric drill through her temple that they mentioned in X2. So you have a potential there for. So I would say, I guess, okay, I'm going to go with this theory. Sorry, I'm just kind of rambling because it's a convoluted timeline, hard to think about.
Go for it.
So that I would say that Logan is the end result of the timeline with where Apocalypse appears and Days of Future Past. So I'd say this is a new deviant timeline from the one we know in X3, is what I would say. That's my thought. I have no
Then if you watch Flash, then you get an explanation as to flashpoints and how this kind of stuff can happen. So watch Flash and it'll all go full circle. But yeah, I mean, continuity aside, with the other movies, just the fact that like the way they introduced X-23 was, I felt like it was very similar to the timing was different, but like her origins was very similar to X-Men Evolution, which was really cool. But they also tied it into Wolverine's origins as well. Not the movie, but literally his origin of Weapon X project. God, we gotta be careful with our words so we don't confuse anything now. But no, I'm glad you talked about X-23. She was going to be one of the last things I talked about because I loved her in this film. She was funny in certain parts of the film. I felt like she acted very well. I mean, I felt like she did for a child actor, but I felt like the action scenes with her were amazing. And again, I go back to the R-rated thing. And again, not necessary, but like icing on the cake kind of thing. Like the choreography was really great. I felt like I want to say that she topped Hit Girl as like the young, like action kid kind of thing. Like I felt like Hit Girl was like the top for child superheroes or whatever, but she kind of she beat that to me. That's saying a lot in my opinion, because Hit Girl was pretty badass in Kick-Ass 1 and 2, bringing it full circle back to Quicksilver in both movies being from Kick-Ass, but that's a side topic. But yeah, I really enjoyed her. I loved her interaction with Wolverine and Professor X. Professor X is like the crazy grandpa, and it was like this weird family dynamic. I mean, they even basically acted like that. You know, this is my father and this is my daughter. Like it was really cool, like messed up, like family vacation where everyone just dies.
Yeah, I felt. Oh, yeah. One
but
thing I'll point out, I feel really bad for Wolverine in the sense that the dude needs to stop staying at farmhouses. 'Cause every time he stays at one, just the entire family there dies.
yeah,
'Cause
that was what I was
X-Men.
bring up.
And I know when they stayed the night at that farmhouse, I'm like, oh, this family's gonna die, and and they're gonna feel terrible about it. And I'm like, oh man.
See, I was still until that moment, I was still in like Marvel Magic mindset where I thought that no one could die except for bad guys. And that's when I realized that shit was real in this movie. Like, because they had this actor, I can't think of his name, but my girlfriend knew who he was. And like, when the son died, I was like, oh shit. Like, this movie's not messing around. Because
like, oh, this movie earned its R rating.
yeah, traditionally, people who are close to Wolverine dies. People who are close to him just like bad things happen. I mean, he even says it later on in the film, but I knew that ahead of time. But it was like, you know, that like comic book and cartoon Wolverine, not actual, like not actual, but movie Wolverine. And yeah, when that whole family got destroyed by X-24, which was awesome, by the way. I didn't know how to feel. I felt very conflicted. I was a little pissed, to be honest. I was like, did they just kill this family? Like, well, what the hell?
What I thought was really intriguing, like, I guess we should probably say spoilers or whatever in the chat. But,
yeah, spoilers.
Yeah. But what I thought was really intriguing was the way they introduced that whole scene was I actually thought it was like Xavier's dream, is what I thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, right, because that happened too. Yeah. I didn't acknowledge that. I was really confused. I was like, oh man. And that's they purposely did that. They wanted you to think it was.
I know.
They wanted you to think it.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing came together really well. But ultimately the whole thing, like because Xavier was talking about the events that happened before and they had kind of been describing it. And it was really making me wonder about what happened before to cause this chain of events to occur. And it really made me curious about that. And I was hoping they would explain it. But by them not explaining it in the film, it made it more interesting and kind of more, I guess romanticized is probably the wrong word, but it made it more intriguing. So that way, as an audience member, you fill in the blanks and you kind of project your own emotional feelings towards the characters as to what they're going through. So it kind of makes the characters more captivating and interesting. So I thought that was a really good creative choice.
Yeah, I don't feel like well, I am personally curious, which makes me want to know more. But I feel like the setup of how they got to this point wasn't as important as like the journey that they had gone on, and I felt like it did make it a little bit more mysterious. And you kind of wanted to know what they were alluding to because they hint at certain things like, oh, what you did back in whatever state you're talking about a few years ago, or whatever. And it's like, what are you talking about? But then at the same time, that bad guy said that he killed off all the mutants. So like I was really confused with that part as well. I mean, maybe he's the one that triggered Xavier to do whatever it is that he did, or maybe he like built some Sentinels and they just destroyed everything. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, the whole the thing that got me thinking about that was I was fantasizing that maybe it was like from the Onslaught Chronicles that happened in the 90s. Do you remember that one?
I know who Onslaught is, but I don't know the exact story. I know or what two people it is, I should say, right?
Well, because Onslaught was that character that emerged from Xavier's mind.
It was Magneto and Xavier, right?
Well, no, it was more. Onslaught came out from. This is what I remember, so I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But Bark, go. My dog wanted to drop by. But it came out of Xavier's mind, and then he somehow took a physical form through Xavier, and it became this thing where like a lot of mutants died, putting him down. And so that might have been kind of an intriguing catalyst. So I was thinking about that maybe that was something that had to do with it. which made it more interesting to me. And I'm like, ooh, I wonder if they'll do like an Onslaught movie. That'd be badass.
That would be pretty cool. I'll read a quick character synopsis because you're right, but there's a and to that. But Onslaught is a fictional character that appears in comic books published in Marvel, blah, blah, blah. Onslaught was written as a sentient psionic entity created by the consciousness of two mutants, Professor X and Magneto. So you're right about how he was created, but it was also the consciousness of Magneto as well. I thought it was something like that, but I didn't know like it was created from their consciousness. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, kind of like it was actually. I think I have the comic in my garage somewhere if I wanted to dig for it.
Because he looks like to me he looks like Juggernaut
like
Magneto.
A beefy Magneto. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that it would be like a reference to that or something. I was like, oh man, if they do an Onslaught one, that'd be badass. But they probably won't because Fox would probably mess something like that up.
My theory on what they might do next is the New Mutants. They even say the title in the movie multiple times. Charles Xavier can say New Mutants in this thing.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense because they introduced the X-23 character. I guess the only thing that would bother me with that one would be that they'd have to, if they wanted to have those characters carry a film, they'd have to find much older actors, like 1820s. Otherwise, a bunch of kids running around is kind of meh. But I thought what they did really well and what was rather smart was that they limited the conversation X-23 had with him. And when she did initially, they had it done in Spanish. Because what I find might be me, but if someone is talking in a different language, I can't interpret if they're a good or bad actor or not.
Yes.
So that's
why I got confused.
That's what I thought was a really good choice. Because I'm like, if she's talking in Spanish, I can't necessarily see how she's acting because she seemed like she was trying to project rage, but it kind of came off as this kind of her. I found that to be really amusing.
Mm-hmm.
That was just me.
Yeah, she was an interesting character throughout the film because like I couldn't understand her motivations for certain things, and it was interesting having a silent protagonist for half the film. Yeah, and again, that's why like when I first said like her acting was good, I kind of backtracked a little bit because when she first started talking, she was in Spanish, and in the first half of the movie, like she didn't say anything, so it was hard to gauge. But I felt like towards the end, and maybe they had it to where towards the end of the movie they were still teaching her acting, so she was developing her acting skills throughout the process of the movie. But I thought she did well. She did well enough to not pull me out of the movie and feel like, oh man, this is a bad child actor. And it felt like she genuinely cared when Wolverine died, and that was a very emotional moment for me. But yeah, I think that could be the setup. Whether they do like a child version, like it'll be kind of dark if they go to like a PG movie from like a PG-13, like a rated R movie spawns a PG movie. That would be very interesting to see. I don't think that'll be the case because again, they'd be isolating some people because it wouldn't, a lot of people that are PG might not want to see that. But who knows? I mean, I can't say. I mean, Disney does own it, so it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to make that and make it somewhat well. I think it'll be kind of fun to have some child kids zapping around doing some crazy shit. Would I see it in the theater? Probably not. But is it a possibility? Maybe. But I agree with you in the sense that when they're older, that would be kind of cool. I mean, I wouldn't mind a PG-13 movie with the New Mutants and just like this new Earth. They have a fresh canvas to do whatever they want, but also kind of reference back to some other things and tell some backstory if they needed to. I think it'd be a good opportunity. But does thou have any closing statements, sir?
Logan is a great film. You should go watch it. The fight choreography done for the little girl X-23 is phenomenal. The stuff they have Logan do is pretty great. Overall, the film holds together really well. I wouldn't say it doesn't really drag at any points. Overall, it kind of holds the story together, and there's really not much I can nag on, and I usually hate everything, so there's that.
I agree with everything he just said, and then I also hope that they do an extended version just to see what else they have to add on to it. But other than that, I agree with everything he said. I thought it was great. I got some feels throughout the movie, and that's rare for me. And it's very rare that I genuinely enjoy a movie to the point to where I'm like, I want to see this again, or I want to buy the DVD. I don't buy DVDs or Blu-rays, whatever you want to call it. I don't buy movies, but I like this one. I genuinely do.
I buy films on VHS and Laserdisc.
Jeez, what a hipster. But anyways, where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me at www.historicnerd.com, my website. Or if you want to go to Twitter, you can talk to me directly by sending crap at historicalnerd at twitter.com or whatever the crap. You probably know how to use Twitter if you have Twitter. But yeah, or you can find me on Facebook, /historicnerd, or come see me on YouTube. I do stupid videos. And or you can find me on the consoleexplosion.com. But yeah.
Do it, guys. He makes some great stuff. Also, yeah, like you said, the consoleexplosion.com. As always, I'm the philosopher. I'm the host. I try to do this every Wednesday or Thursday. It's been a very busy few months, so pardon me while I try to work some things out, but I'll have some free time in the future here to be able to do this on a consistent basis again. But if you want to find me, you can, of course, find me on the consoleexplosion.com. If you want to watch my videos, they're on youtube.com/thephilosopher. Twitter, if you want to hit me up on there, it's The Philosopher. I'm somewhat active on there. And then I'm most active on Facebook. You can look me up under Tavian Napier or just The Philosopher, facebook.com/philosopher. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know. Hopefully you've seen the movie and you didn't sit through this whole entire thing without seeing the movie. If not, still go see it.
We described it poorly, so yeah.
yeah. It's worth seeing even with the spoilers, I promise you. But let us know what you thought of the movie. I genuinely know, did you enjoy the movie? Did you think it was stupid? Let us know down below. And if you want to see these videos or more from the Console Explosion, hit that subscribe button and share with other people. Let them know what we thought about it, but let them know there's spoilers in here. Don't be one of those guys. Please don't. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.